Okay.
GrandMommy, what's Piggly, Wiggly, and Squiggly's adventure about today?
Oh, well, glad you asked that. Girls and boys, today's adventure is Farmer Brown is going to come to their house, and he's got a question he's going to ask them. So, after breakfast, Piggly, Wiggly, and Squiggly were deciding what to do today. And they didn't think they wanted to go out and play because it was too hot. It was getting hotter because the summer was starting. So they were sitting there at the breakfast table discussing what they're going to do. And here comes a knock on the door. Well, Mama Piggy opened up the door. There stood Farmer Brown. Excuse me. So Farmer Brown says, "Hi, Mrs. Piggy, can I come in for a little bit? I have to talk to the boys, providing it is okay with you." And she said, "Well, of course it is, Farmer Brown." So Farmer Brown went into the kitchen and he sat down, and Mrs. Piggy says, "Can I get you a cup of coffee?" Farmer Brown says, "Oh, that would be so good. Thank you so much, Mrs. Piggy." So he said, "Boys, Piggly, Wiggly, Squiggly, I have a question for you guys." What is it? What is it? What is it? What will we do? What can we do? What is it? What is it? What is it? Oh, they were all excited because they just thought Mr. Farmer Brown was so nice. They just really thought he was nice. Well, Mr. Farmer Brown says, "I need some babysitters." Mrs. Farmer Brown have a baby? No. I have some baby animals that I need you to help me with. I need you to help me feed them, and I need you to help me round them up because sometimes they just go all over the place. And I need you boys to come out today, and if you like the work, you can come every other day. Wow. Okay, let's go. And boom, off they went. They were so excited. Well, they get to Mr. Farmer Brown's farm. Oh my goodness gracious. The little pygmy goat, she had 3 little babies. Well, Wiggly saw them and said, "Oh, Farmer Brown, can I take care of the little pygmy goats?" Now, boys and girls, pygmy goats are little. They're not regular-sized goats. They're really cute little things. And they go, "Bah, bah," all the time. And they run fast, too. So Wiggly is looking around, and he says, "Oh, Farmer Brown, what can I help do?" And Farmer Brown says, "Well, we've got some new little chicks, and the new battery, and the new little chicks are they're just wild, and I just don't know what we're going to do with them. And so you can help me feed them because they're a pain to feed. I have to put the special feed in a special trough so that the other chickens can't find the feed and the roosters can't find the feed. And I don't want the roosters to be chasing all the little baby chickens." And then you got to watch up in the sky for the hawks to come down because the hawks are going to come down and swoop them up in the air and go off and eat them. Yeah, unfortunately, that's what happens. So Wiggly says, "Wow, that's a big job. You think I can do it?" And Mr. Farmer Brown says, "Well, I'm going to help you do that job because Piggly shouldn't need any job, so I'm going to help you get that job done." And Squiggly says, "Well, what's going to be my job?" And Mr. Farmer Brown says, "Well, you're a little bit taller than the Piggly and Wiggly, so I'm going to give you the new pony. The new pony was born yesterday."
Ooh, I love ponies.
And so she needs the little bit of help. The little pony needs some little help. And so, I'm sorry. And so anyway, off they go. Well, Piggly had the best time playing with the sorry, boys and girls, with the baby goats, the pygmy goats. And they ran all over the place, and the more he ran after them, the faster they ran, and it was so funny. So finally he got smart, and he stood still, and he put his hands out like this, and one by one, the three little pygmy goats came over to him, and they thought that he had food in his hands. Well, he didn't yet. He wasn't time to feed them. So they come over and they go, and they were kissing on his hands, and they were so sweet. So he was petting them like a little doggy, because they were about the size of a dog, maybe a German Shepherd. You know how big that dog is? It's a very pretty dog, and it's a kind of a big dog. And they were about that same size. Well, Wiggly, in the meantime, there was, I think, 22 baby chickens, and they're only about this big, and they're fuzzy-wuzzy orange, and they're so cute. And they go all over the place, just as quick as they can. And so Wiggly noticed that Piggly had stood still, and he thought, I think I'm going to try that. I'm going to try to see if the little chickies will come to me. Sure enough, they did. They came right to him. And Farmer Brown had gave the boys an apron to put on because he didn't want them to get their clothes very, very, very dirty. Just, they were going to get them dirty, but not very, 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 very dirty. So Piggly swooped up his apron tail like this, and he was able to put the chickens in the apron, and he was able to carry them around the chicken yard. Oh, he just thought that was the greatest thing. He was carrying them all around in his apron. Well, Mrs. Farmer Brown, she was looking out the kitchen window, and she said, oh, I've got to go take some pictures of those little boys and show their mommy how good they worked. And so she gets her camera, and she runs out, and she comes up to Piggly, and she says, can you stand there again and have the little pygmy goats come up to you, because I want to take your picture. Piggly says, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So he did. He held his hands out with his open like this, and the goats came over to him, and Mrs. Farmer Brown took his picture. So now she went over to Wiggly, and she took the picture of the apron full of baby chickens. Well, in the meantime, Squiggly is out in the back pasture with the new pony. And the new pony could just barely walk because he was only born last night, you know. But he was trying, and each time he tried, he got better. Well, Squiggly went up to him and says, aw, and he started petting him, and he started talking to him. And you know something? Piggly would take one step, and the pony would take one step. And Piggly take 2 steps, and the pony took 2 steps. Everything that Squiggly did, the pony did behind him. Well, they could have stayed there all day long. They just had a ball. And so here comes feeding time, and here comes Mr. Farmer Brown, and he went out to Piggly, and he says, okay, he said, I've got you a bucket of feed. He says, and what you do is you just take this feed, and you go in your hand, and you go squish, 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 all over the ground, and the chickens will eat it. All over this dirt? Yep, they know how to eat it, and they won't eat the dirt. Oh, okay. And I just go in with my hand in a bucket and go frumpy, frumpy. Mr. Farmer Brown says, that's what you do, go frumpy, frumpy. So he goes over to Wiggly, and he says, okay, it's feeding time for the chickies. And so He says, now what you do, here's your bucket, and you just take a handful and you go whoop-de-dee, whoop-de-dee, whoop-de-dee. And Wiggly says, okay, that sounds interesting. Do the pygmy goats know that it's food, and do they know that it's dinner time? And yes, they know that it's dinner time, and they'll eat all that food. Okay. Well, now out in the pasture, Squiggly is having a good time. He is just having the best time ever, because if he runs, the pony runs beside him. If he walks, the pony walks beside him. If he stands still, the pony stands still beside him. He's having such a good time. He sees Farmer Brown coming, and Farmer Brown has a bucket in his hand, and he goes, oh, it must be dinner time for the pony. So he asks Farmer Brown, he says, can I name the pony? What's his name? And Farmer Brown says, well, I haven't got a name for him yet, so I guess, yeah, why don't you name him for me? Squiggly thought, and he thought, and he thought, and he thought, and he thought. And he goes, Mr. Farmer Brown, I know a word that is an Indian word. Can I name him an Indian word? You know, because the cowboys and the Indians, and they all had horses, and they all ran fast, and so forth and so on. Can I name him an Indian name? And Mr. Farmer Brown says, well, it's depending on what it is. And he says, I got a real good name. It's Tonka. And Mr. Farmer Brown says, well, I think that sounds pretty good. Giddy up, Tonka. Away we go, Tonka. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I think I like that name. Well, Squiggly says, what's in the bucket? And Mr. Farmer Brown says, well, that's Tonka's feeding bucket right now, because he's not big enough to have a whole trough. And so that's his feeding bucket. And so what you do is we're going to hook it on this little nail here on this fence. There's a little hook standing right there on this fence. And he put the handle of the pail over the hook, and oh, Tonka comes right over, and he didn't stop until it was filled. He didn't stop until that bucket was empty. He ate all of it. Well, they played with the animals some more. They played with the little baby chicks, and they played with the little baby goats, and they played with the little baby Tonka. And it got to be 4 o'clock, and Mr. Farmer Brown says, okay, we're going to go home now. I'm going to take you boys home. Do you think you'd like to come back again? Could we come back again? Could we feed them all over again? Could we take care of them? Can I brush the pony down? Can, yeah. And maybe you boys could change jobs. So every time that you come, you just go down an animal, and so tomorrow, Squiggly, you would be feeding the chickens, and Piggly would be feeding the pygmy goats, and Wiggly would be feeding Tonka. How about like that? And then each day you move down a job, and then that way you learn all about all the animals. The boys said, what a good idea. Oh, let's do that. And so Mr. Farmer Brown took him home, and he says, Mrs. Piggy, they were such good workers. Oh, my goodness gracious, they were such good workers. And they hung their aprons up for the next time. And I'm going to pay them at the end of the week, and I am so proud of them. And Mrs. Piggy says, well, that's good. Thank you so very, very much. I'm glad the boys worked good for you. Okay, boys and girls, this was a quick one today. Stay tuned for the next episode on Monday, and go to my YouTube channel, and I will see you again. Bye.